now being held virtually under the newly minted Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. So because we're meeting virtually, we'll have to call the roll for all of our votes, as well as taking an attendance roll call, just to make sure that we're all here, can see and hear one another. So I'll go through the roll quickly, and we'll try to limit the amount of votes that we have to take via roll to get through all this today. So I'll start with Ime Ayu.
Present.
Sharonda Almeida. Colette Frank.
Present.
Kurt Bellavance.
Present.
Karen Canfield. Nope. Next is me. I'm present. Jennifer Constable.
Present.
Tom Daniel.
Present.
John DePriest.
Present.
Mo Handel.
Present.
Tabor Keeley. Angela Yu. Gina Martinez. George Proakis. Courtney Rainey. Vandana Rao. Sam Seidel.
Here.
Steve Silvera.
Present.
Monica Tibbetts-Nutt. Juan Vega. Elaine Vanya.
Here.
And Aaron Wortman.
Here.
All right, great. I'll quickly ask Lizzie or Mark or Lizzie, is George still serving representing Somerville, or has he transitioned to his new role?
Well, similar to your situation, Adam, since you are now representing Dedham.
Yep.
George, I believe, is going to be representing Watertown. However, and since, Dedham is a town, Arlington is a town, so that worked. And Watertown is a city, Somerville is a city, so that would work. However, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that George is on vacation. He is no longer in Somerville, but he has not yet started in Watertown. So, or maybe he just started in Watertown. I'm not quite sure. So that is the situation. Now,
I'm seeing in the
I
chat.
do see that someone is here.
The alternate.
Yeah, I see that. I just saw that someone is here, Sarah,
Okay.
from Somerville. So she would be appropriately representing that seat as the alternate for the current moment in time when George is still the Somerville representative. He hasn't been replaced or, and then no action has been taken by Watertown.
Great.
Welcome, Sarah.
Yeah, welcome, Sarah. And Steve Olenoff, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, you didn't call my name. I'm here.
Okay, I think I might have been calling you just as you were logging on, but thank you. I'm glad you're here.
And also I would note Monica's here. I think Andrea has that, so yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you for that. So now the next agenda item is approval of the minutes from the June 15th, 2022 meeting. Mark circulated these draft minutes. Are there any comments, questions, suggested revisions, or if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, I'll call the roll again. Ime?
Aye.
Sharonda?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Karen? Adam, I vote aye. Jen?
Abstained.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Tabor? Angie? Gina? Steve Olenoff?
Aye.
Thank you. Sarah Lewis?
Aye.
Courtney? Vandana? Sam?
Yes.
Steve Silvera?
Yes.
Monica?
Yes.
Juan? Elaine?
Yes.
And Aaron?
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, the next agenda item is the report of the treasurer, including an income statement report for April 2022. So I will pass it to Treasurer Sam for that report.
Thank you, President Adam, and hello to everybody. Stay cool, stay hydrated. We are looking at April 2022 for the income statement. I think the overall takeaway is that things are in balance in April 2022. The numbers are below budget, but sort of equally so. So total revenue at 82%, direct labor at 89%, total admin expenses at 85%. The takeaway there is that it leaves us at an overhead rate of 113%, which is well below our 118% approved. That isn't so much of an issue as we go out to the cumulative overhead rate for the year. Remember that April is 2 months before the end of the fiscal year. We're at 116%. The goal is always to end right on our approved number if we can, which is 118%. So we're keeping an eye out on that, and had the opportunity to talk a little bit with Anna about that as we go forward over these next 2 months of that fiscal year. I would only also note that we had a net increase of fund balance of 129,000, which is a healthy number, I will say, but nothing else really to report on that. That concludes the report of the treasurer. If there are any thoughts, comments, questions, would entertain them now.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions or comments for Sam? Does not look like it, Sam. And Sam, do you need a vote on this? I don't think we normally.
I think, yes, Mark is saying I can't remember, we accept,
It's a vote to approve the report of the treasurer.
Okay, I was trying to get out of a roll call, but we'll we'll do it. Do we have a motion to approve the report of the treasurer?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Seeing no other comments or questions, I will call the roll again. Imai?
Aye.
Sharonda?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Karen? Adam? I vote aye. Jennifer?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Tabor? Angie? Gina? Steve Olenoff?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Courtney? Vandana? Sam?
Aye.
Steve Silvera?
Aye.
Monica?
Aye.
Juan? Elaine?
Aye.
And Aaron?
Aye.
Great. Motion carries. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everybody. All right, moving to agenda item 4. This is an exciting agenda item. This is an introduction, welcome, and vote of approval for the new Deputy Executive Director for Planning and Sustainability, Catherine Antos. So will I turn that to you, Mark, for an introduction?
Well, we are so pleased to have Catherine join our team. She joined earlier this month. She is here today on the screen. I'll give her an opportunity to say a few words and maybe do some introductions around the room. Catherine comes to us with a wealth of experience, mostly in the Washington, D.C. area, at both the federal and district level of government and community appointments as well. Her field is environment, but she brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise in other areas as well, particularly establishing partnerships with community-based organizations and with local officials. I cannot say how pleased we are to have Catherine return to her home in the Boston area with her family and to take this position at MAPC. I think she's going to be a great partner to Lizzie and to me, and a great asset to the agency and to the region. I hope you will all approve her appointment today and welcome her to MAPC. Maybe even some of you will take the opportunity. I would encourage you to meet with her and tell her a little bit about what you do and learn a little bit about her experience and expertise. I know we're all going to have a sharing exercise later, so I'm not sure. We don't want to do that now, but Adam, would you like people to just go around the horn and identify themselves and where they're from? And then Catherine, I would ask to say a few words.
I think that sounds like a great idea. So why don't I Maybe I'll just call everybody in the order of the roll again, and they can quickly say hello, what their role is, so Catherine can start to put faces with names and affiliations. So why don't we start with Imai.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome. Glad to have you. I'm Imai Yu, Town of Weston planner, representing Metro West.
And Sharonda.
Hi, welcome. I'm Sharonda Almeida. I'm gubernatorial. I live in Jamaica Plain, Boston, and I also run the Mel King Institute for Community Building, which is based at the Mass Association of Community Development Corporations.
Thank you. Colette.
Hi, yes, my name is Colette Frank, and I'm a select board member in Wellesley, and I'm along with Imai representing Metro West Regional Collaborative.
Kurt.
Hi, Kurt Bellavance from the city of Peabody, a new member of the executive committee. Have been to 3 meetings so far, so welcome aboard.
Karen, I don't think Karen has joined us. I'm next alphabetically. I introduce myself. I'm Adam Chapdelaine, serving as MAPC president. I just left the role of Arlington town manager, now representing Dedham on the council where I live, but starting a new role in September as the deputy director of the Boston Green Ribbon Commission. So really look forward to getting to work with you. Next, we have Jennifer Constable.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome. I'm Jen Constable. I am currently the assistant town administrator for the town of Rockland. I also serve as chair to the select board in the town of Hull and am newly appointed or elected secretary to the MAPC board.
Tom Daniel.
Hi, Catherine. Welcome. I'm Tom Daniel. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development in South.
Who's next? John DePriest.
Hi, I'm John DePriest. I'm the Director of Permitting and Land Use Planning in the City of Chelsea. Just started my 29th year here, and welcome back to the Boston area, and welcome to MAPC.
Mo Handel.
Hi, I'm Mo Handel, former member of the Needham Planning Board and Select Board, currently the Needham representative to MAPC and MAPC's representative to the MWRA Advisory Board.
Great. Tabor Keeley. Oh, Tabor, you're on mute.
Sorry that. Hi, Catherine. I, by day, am a commercial real estate broker south of Boston, including my town of Milton. And I am on the Metropolitan Area Planning Council now for 15 years or thereabouts. I am Milton's rep probably for the last 25 years, and I serve for the Planning Commission for our Master Plan Committee and implementation.
Great. Steve Olenoff.
Hi, I'm Steve Olenoff from the town of Westwood. I've been on the planning board there for 31 years, and I think I've been in MAPC for about 29 years. So I'm still here. That's about it.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Sarah Lewis from Somerville. You'll be introducing yourself to all of us.
Yes, hello. I have been in the background behind George, serving as the alternate for Somerville. And so with the transition, I'm here today until we figure out what our next steps are. So Catherine, everybody, it's very, very nice to meet you. I am actually the director of planning, preservation, and zoning for the city. And Catherine, my background is GC too. So I'd love to catch up and do a chat.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I don't think I see Courtney or Vandana having joined yet, so we'll go to Sam.
Hi, Catherine. Sam Seidel. I live in Cambridge. I'm a gubernatorial appointee on MAPC and also the treasurer, the current treasurer of MAPC. I've been connected to the organization in those types of capacities for many years now, and most recently locally working on some development projects here in Cambridge and the Cambridge area. Welcome.
Steve Silvera.
Hi, Catherine. Steve Silvera. I live in the city of Melrose. I'm a gubernatorial appointee. And unless Mark corrects me, which I would ask him to do if I'm wrong, I believe I'm the longest serving member now of the executive committee. So welcome.
I think that could be right.
Wow. The dean.
Not sure if that says a lot or a little about me, but the fact is a fact.
Thank you, Steve. Monica Tibbetts-Nutt.
Good morning, Catherine. Thank you for joining. My name is Monica Tibbetts-Nutt. I live in Devens, Massachusetts, but I work in the 128 corridor as the executive director of the 128 Business Council. We provide private shuttle services and different services to the municipality that do not have enough MBTA service. I also have been recently elected as vice president. So welcome. Look forward to meeting you in person someday, but we're definitely excited to have you.
Great. Thank you, Monica. I don't think Juan has joined, so I will ask Elaine.
Hi, I'm Elaine Vanya. I work at the State Department of Housing and Community Development. I'm a principal land use planner, which means I do a lot of different things. And I live in the MAPC region in the city of Quincy.
Great. Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, our immediate past president, Erin Warman.
Hi again, Catherine. I'm Erin. We've met before, but I am the Director of Planning and Community Development for the town of Stoneham, and have been in North Suburban Planning Council region doing planning for going on my 17th year, which is kind of crazy. So I'm right behind Steve, I think, for the council. So welcome.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you for the prompt, Keith. And we're joined by our chair of our legislative committee, former president, longtime member of the executive committee, Keith Bergman. So go say hello, Keith.
Thanks, Adam, and welcome, Catherine. I'm one of the many past presidents of MAPC who gets to be a non-voting member of the executive committee. And I'm sure once we go back to in-person meetings with lunch, that you'll see a lot of the non-voting past presidents there as well. I represent the town of Concord on the MAPC council. Sounds like Adam just did what I did when I left Littleton's employ and was no longer Littleton's representative to MAPC. I got an appointment from the town where I live, Concord, to serve on the council. Very happy to join in welcoming you here, and best of luck.
Thank you, Keith. Clearly, we both couldn't get away from the free lunches, so we had to keep those appointments. So thank you, everybody. Again, welcome, Catherine. I think you obviously know you're joining an exemplary team, both at the leadership level and throughout the whole organization. And I think this is also an exemplary body here that you'll get to work with and present with and sort of learn from, and then convince of the many things that the organization and agency are trying to do. But if you'd like to say a few words of hello, that would be great.
Sure. Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in person one of these days as well. I know I'm joining a wonderful organization when the past presidents are still hanging around and joining even when there's no lunch involved. So I'm honored to be a part of the team. As was mentioned earlier, I grew up in Massachusetts. I went to school in New England, was working in the Boston area, and then went to grad school, and then moved down to DC for 15 years, where I had experience working with the federal government and then with the local/state government when I worked at DC's Department of Energy and Environment. And also spent some time working with a community-based organization focused on the Anacostia River restoration. So originally my career was about, reducing pollution for living resources that were in the water, but increasingly it was pivoting more and more to how can we think about plans and then implementing those plans into policies and programs where you're not just making more sustainable and resilient environmental decisions, but also doing it in a way that is increasing benefits to residents, particularly underserved residents that are experiencing health inequities and economic inequities. So how can we shape policies and programs that create economic opportunity, that provide mental and physical health benefits? And so when it came time to transition back home to New England, I'm thrilled to be back in Massachusetts. Finding this opportunity with MAPC was the perfect opportunity to continue to work with communities in the Boston area on sustainability and resilience. So I'm honored to be working with you. As Mark mentioned, I've been transitioning in the summer and I'm going to be starting full-time in September. So if things seem a little quiet over the summer, I hope that they're quiet for you as well if you're getting some much needed R&R and vacation time, but I look forward to working with you this fall and in the years ahead. I'm honored to join this group, so thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And again, welcome. Mark or Lizzie, anything to add before we ask for a vote?
I don't have anything to add except that Catherine is an exemplary addition to the team. And she's part-time during the summer, just a day a week, generally Tuesdays. And she will be starting full-time the day after Labor Day, the 6th of September.
Awesome. Thank you. Lizzie in the chat. I think we're all very excited to have you on board, Catherine. So again, that's great news. So I need to ask for a motion to formally approve Catherine's appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made by Aaron, I think seconded by Mo. Did I hear that
No.
right?
Oh,
Who's that? Who's
I
seconded?
would, but I wasn't.
John DePriest.
John, thank you, John. I think we should get that right for the minutes. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ime?
Aye.
Sharonda?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Adam? I vote aye. Jen?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mo?
Aye.
Tabor?
Aye.
Steve Olenoff?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Courtney? No, Vandana? Sam?
Aye.
Steve Silvera?
Aye.
Monica?
Aye.
Elaine?
Aye.
And Aaron?
Aye.
Great, motion carries. It's official. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to our next agenda item is a report of the executive director. So I will turn it over to Mark.
Thank you very much, folks. We have a 2-month report, which we sent you, and you might want to follow along if you wish, as I highlight a couple of key items scrolling through the document. In the arts and culture sector, I want to note the work that we've been doing in Salem. Obviously, Tom is very familiar with that, and also the work that we're doing in Malden. 2 examples of the ways in which Annis and her arts and culture team, I would note the growing arts and culture team, play an important role in helping individual cities and towns to introduce the arts and memorialize and draw attention to culture in their communities as an overall effort to strengthen those communities, whether it's the Call for Artists in Salem or the rebuilding and dedication of the Arts and Culture Center in the old fire station in Malden. A lot of that work directly benefits our cities and towns, and we're very proud of it, and I wanted to draw attention to it there. In the climate space or the clean energy space, I'm going to draw attention to 2 items called COVID Safe Cooling for 2022 and Keeping Metro Boston Cool. It seems impossible today not to mention efforts to try and keep the region cool. But I want to note that Sasha Scheideroff and other members of the clean energy team spend an enormous amount of time on this effort, actually year-round. If it's during the summer, it's directly working with cities and towns to keep people cool and to avoid the tremendous health impacts from extreme heat. If it's during the winter, spring, and fall, it's helping to prepare those programs, to distribute funding, to provide technical assistance. All of this became dramatically more difficult during COVID because of the difficulty of gathering people together in traditional cooling centers. We've moved beyond that somewhat now, but many of the strategies that we learned to use during COVID are in fact still in place and are important ways of helping people to prepare for, deal with, and survive extreme heat. Especially important for people with illness, for seniors, for very young children, for people living in unair-conditioned public housing, and other large segments of our population. I wanted to really draw attention to that work at MAPC. It's important work, and I want to thank Sasha and her team for those efforts. I will draw under data services attention to our ongoing work on what we really do about once every 4 years, and each time we do it better, which is our statewide projections, statewide land use forecasts, which have reached a major milestone last month by compiling the statewide zoning map and draft estimates for allowable density in each zoning district. And this plays an important role as input information into the long-range transportation plan of the Boston Region MPO, and also the transportation plans of MPOs and non-MPO regions throughout Massachusetts, because we are responsible with other partners for the projections information that happens throughout Massachusetts. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that and to thank Data Services for their ongoing work, often unheralded, but important work in that sphere. In the Environment Department, we have finished the second year, or second round of our Accelerating Climate Resiliency Grant, or ACR, which is funded by the Barr Foundation. 22 resilience projects funded this year for $1.15 million. A regional community of practice, or a resilience community of practice, with a speaker series also adopted and implemented by MAPC this year as a way of helping resilience practitioners in our cities and towns and elsewhere to meet with each other, learn from each other, share best practices, and also occasionally complain to each other about the difficulty of doing their work. Special kudos to Van Du in the Environment Department, and also for Cami Peterson, recently left from our Clean Energy Department, and Martin Pillsbury, director of our Environment Department, for all of their work, but particularly Van's work to advance ACR, which is now really, I think, sort of a milestone feature of MAPC's work in the climate space. Lizzie, is there anything going on in government affairs? Just a tiny bit, I think, at the moment, and I'm going to let Lizzie speak to that mostly during the legislative report that she will do with Keith and with other members of staff. Huge amount going on Beacon Hill as we seek to end the session, the 21-22 session on the 31st of July. One thing I will also mention, it's not Beacon Hill, but it's a joint effort on the part of Government Affairs and Public Health, because I'm very proud of the presentation of testimony on food security that was presented by, really helped to be prepared by Georgia Barlow in Government Affairs and Heidi Stucker in Public Health. The presentation was made to a joint congressional hearing that was sponsored by Congresswoman Presley and Project Bread. It was held in East Boston, and MAPC through Georgia delivered some really excellent and valuable and detailed testimony on these issues. In land use, I think one of the key things going on is just the huge number of projects, many of which we're working to come to conclusion before the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. I'm only going to mention one or two. There are actually two projects, one in land use and one earlier mentioned, I think up under clean energy, that have been completed for Gloucester that are mentioned or described in this report. You'll note in my comments about the Gloucester Open Space and Recreation Plan on page 10 that this planning process was not without challenge and difficulty. And I want to thank Courtney Lewis from our land use team for spearheading this project, dealing with the difficulties and challenges, particularly from an oppositional group of folks in the community who were opposed to public lands in Gloucester being available to residents from throughout the region. And this was a difficult, challenging, and emotionally fraught process. It was frankly an indication of the exclusionary nature of things that we often see in some of our land use planning efforts. And I think it was well navigated. Huge thanks to Courtney, and thanks to the leadership of Mayor Verga and the city of Gloucester for moving this forward despite the opposition. Similarly, right under that, a challenging process in Revere. In partnership with Mayor Arrigo, our housing team has been working very hard to pass an inclusionary zoning ordinance for Revere. It was not to be this time around. We had a difficult city council hearing, but the advisory committee, the city, MAPC, community-based organizations supporting inclusionary housing are going to meet again soon to debrief, to share with each other, and to figure out next steps. We're not giving up on this. We're going to keep moving forward. As I often say to my staff, it can take years and it can take multiple efforts to make difficult things happen, especially in the face of opposition that is sometimes based in preserving bad elements of the past rather than moving ahead into the future. That is a situation we're facing in Revere, but one that I feel confident we are going to overcome with time, with education, and with advocacy. In municipal collaboration, I'm going to mention one very important thing, if I could, and that is the after action report, which they have concluded on efforts to vaccinate vulnerable populations at home against the ravages of COVID. We worked very closely during the kind of primary vaccination time with communities in the North Suffolk region and elsewhere on figuring out how to vaccinate people at home. And this after action report studies how that went, what worked, what didn't work, what are some of the difficulties and challenges, what can we learn for the future, both vaccinating and boosting against COVID, but also vaccinating and boosting against flu and other threats. So I want to thank very much Dan Witz and Beth Robert and others for their work on that after action report, as well as their work on the very important vaccination efforts as well. Moving ahead to transportation, which I think will be my last comment. I am going to draw attention to our West Station study. You'll see that that's described in some detail on page 16 and 17 of the report. This was a very important study funded by the Barr Foundation. It includes a wide variety of recommendations about the Alston Landing area, the West Station project, connecting that area to jobs through adequate transit, doing really good placemaking in what will be a completely new neighborhood of the city of Boston, as well as the more commonly discussed issues about the throat and the realignment of I-90. Many of our recommendations in this report are consistent with things that the city of Boston, the city of Cambridge, and the town of Brookline have been pushing for, and our hope is it will have an important influence on the final outcome of this project. In short, a huge amount going on at MAPC. For people who think the summer is slow, it is not. Thank you very much. I'll be glad to answer any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark? Ime? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'd like to know a little bit more about the Gloucester open space plan and the challenges you went through. I don't necessarily need you to cover that now. I don't want to take more time from the meeting, but you know, I find those kind of war stories helpful for myself. One, just to kind of like, it helps me commiserate, I guess, when things are harder and you can talk about your failings amongst other planners rather than the public where you might get judged for it. But also, you know, it gives some good lessons learned. So I don't know if there was a structure in which we could do that, or if, you know, people are just interested in getting together and talking about it.
Well, you know, one of the things that we do in MAPC, and we're going to do it again now in regard to both Gloucester and Revere, is we occasionally bring our staff together to talk about the challenges that they face in public settings with not just folks who disagree. We expect disagreement and communication. That's how we get to good policy. But to people who are sometimes offensive and inappropriate and occasionally racist, both intentionally and unintentionally, in the public sphere. It is something that always has gone on, but I'll be honest with you that the polarized nature of our society currently and the increased freedom that sometimes people feel on Zoom has created a situation which honestly is very, very challenging for our planners, especially younger planners, planners of color, and women. Not exclusively, but it's one thing for me with 30 years of experience and a lot of gray hair and a lot of political battles under my belt, or even many of our directors to go into these settings. It's a different thing for, a planner who's 3 years of experience and maybe new to the region. And we get together every now and then and talk about this among the staff. And I wouldn't mind having maybe not 15 board members, but a few board members participate in those conversations, especially folks, who are local planners and who see this, probably all the time. Let's keep in touch on this.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions for Mark?
I just wanted to add, I feel a certain amount of catharsis just talking about this, Mark. Even though we're not sharing our experiences, just acknowledging just how hard it is. I do feel that things are just a lot harder lately in the public processes.
In Gloucester, we have this new organization called Don't Boston My Cape Ann, which with other things people appear with sandwich signs in front of Market Basket attacking MAPC and insisting that we are trying to force Cape Ann to adopt Agenda 21 of the United Nations, which they see as an effort to impose international orders on the United States. This is an old saw. This one has come up before. It is both comical and tragic. Again, it can be tough. Thankfully, and I really want to point this out, the plan in Gloucester was adopted. We got through it. Courtney deserves a lot of respect and thanks for that. And as I said before, so does the mayor. But these things are hard. And I think every now and then, I don't talk about them too often, but at this board meeting, but I think every now and then it really is important to acknowledge them and to recognize that we got some work to do.
Agreed. Well said, Mark. And I mean, after you got Arlington and forced me to adopt Agenda 21, I'm not surprised other people would think it might spread elsewhere. Sorry, Monica, I see your hand raised.
I mean, I, as always, want to thank you for the thoughtfulness of your comments. The one thing I would ask that all of us think about, and your leadership team, Mark, I've been working with the American Planning Association, doing a series of workshops, working with younger planners, especially planners of color, to give them the tools and also the space to be able to voice those frustrations and get advice from people who've been doing this significantly longer. And so I wonder if this is something, obviously I don't want to add anything to anyone's plate. I would be more than happy to spend some time working on this, but really thinking about what sort of resources MAPC can have for their staff and potentially other planners working within these communities. So I can connect offline with you, but I did want to thank you. And
I'd love
really
to
think
discuss
about what we can be doing more.
Thank you very much. Glad to discuss that.
Thank you for that, Monica. And thank you for that offer, Sharonda.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments or questions for Mark? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much, Mark. I know we could all commiserate for the remainder of the agenda, and maybe we will a little bit later in the round robin as well, so we'll have a little time for that. With that, why don't we move to the report of the Legislative Committee, inclusive of some general legislative updates. And for that introduction, I am assuming I will turn it to Keith.
Thanks very much, Adam. It was, I found the previous discussion very useful as well, as I feel a burden has been lifted. But I look forward to having further discussion about it later in the meeting. Keith Bergman, Chair of the Legislative Committee. The Legislative Committee met last week. We didn't take any votes because we were so enthralled with the blow-by-blow update we were getting from Lizzie and the team on what's happening on Beacon Hill, and the fact that we're all here together means something happened. The acting governor signed a bill on Saturday, so that's something. and look forward to much more coming out and hearing from Lizzie and the team. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Keith. So I am going to give all of you an abridged version of what is happening in the State House. As Mark indicated, there is just a lot going on. It's very typical for the last, I feel like, I don't know what day it is, but 9 days, I think, of the legislative session will work all the way through this week and all the way through next weekend until session moves into informals at midnight on the 31st, or more likely at 2 a.m. on the 31st, where they pretend it's midnight, which is my favorite feature of our legislature. So I want to give just a few updates on things that are happening. I think importantly, the budget is actually done a little earlier this year. It is currently awaiting the governor's signature. We have seen level funding for district local technical assistance and for Shannon inside this year's budget, which was lower than we had hoped because we were seeking an increase on both of those line items, but we were glad to see that they were ultimately level funded in the budget that is currently before the governor. We do currently have a 1/12 budget in place. And so if the governor takes the 10 days we anticipate he will take, our funding is still operational, but we are glad to see that that isn't an 11th hour thing for the end of the legislative session. The other piece I wanted to highlight is one that Keith just referenced. The lieutenant governor over the weekend did sign legislation giving another, essentially an extension to remote meetings, which is why we are allowed to meet in this way right now. There was some question that they wouldn't actually get to it. It did expire. The last extension expired on Friday of last week, but we did actually see her sign that legislation. It's now been extended to March 31st of 2023. And a number of groups are actually working to try to put provisions in place around the remote meeting provisions. And so we are working with some of our colleagues from other stakeholder organizations to actually get the legislature to finalize and make those provisions permanent. All the rest of the things I'm going to talk about are things that are still in flux, either because they are currently before a conference committee or because the legislature is still debating. So I want to just highlight two of the things that we're watching very closely that are in conference committee that we expect to pop very soon. The climate bill, we're actually hearing that might be released today. As a reminder, this was a really huge piece of legislation where the House passed provisions that were most focused on offshore wind development. And it was a really comprehensive package. And then the Senate passed a climate bill that was really different and very big in scope, focused on transportation electrification, the building sector, and another number of other important provisions. The rumors that we're hearing is that the bill really does take both the House and the Senate provisions. If the devil's in the details, so we'll wait to see the language, but if that's the case, it would be a really big step forward on climate legislation. So we're hoping that that'll come out today and maybe for a vote as early as tomorrow on the conference report. The next big piece of legislation that is in conference right now is the transportation bond bill. This is a piece of legislation that they do take up typically every couple of years, offering bond authorizations and a number of transportation provisions. We had really hoped to see that the Senate would once again include the regional ballot initiatives legislation, which we've been pushing for year over year, and that the House would include value capture provisions. Both of those would allow for local transportation funding options. Neither of them were included. Senator Lesser did speak on the floor about regional ballot initiatives and gave a very compelling and passionate pitch, but ultimately they did not pursue that amendment. So we're going to have to kind of think about our strategy for that going forward into next legislative session. The one piece that was included in the transportation bond, which we've been doing a lot of advocacy on now as the end of the session and kind of given the current state of the T, is a provision that would require the T to create a means or low income fare program with potentially an option of a free fare program. The legislature has passed this before and the governor vetoed it. This year, it was only passed on the Senate side. And so we're very hopeful that it'll come out in the conference report. And we are doing a lot of advocacy with our MAPC hat, with our Metro Mayor's hat, together in coalition with our allies at Transportation for Massachusetts to really try to push back against the threat of a veto for the means tested or free fares. So then the bill that I want to turn to next, which is kind of where all the action is focused on right now, at least for us in the State House, is the Economic Development Bill. Some of you might remember that we had been talking about what we thought would be an opportunity for what I colloquially call a Christmas tree bill. It's sort of a really big piece of legislation that often comes at the end of the legislative session, where we're kind of hanging a number of our different policy ornaments on it. We had heard rumors that this might actually be a supplemental budget. It is definitely the Economic Development Bill. The governor originally proposed this legislation spending basically almost all of the remaining ARPA dollars in the state. When the legislature first took it up, they actually stripped out those provisions, but some of those ARPA provisions are back on the table. And the Economic Development Bill is also the place where the legislature is taking up a number of tax abatements and credit and rebate programs to try to help struggling families. We have not weighed in very heavily on all of those provisions, but we are generally supportive of a number of them, particularly around the earned income tax credit. Because the Economic Development Bill is now this very robust bill, which includes some bond authorizations, some expenditure of ARPA funds, and some expenditure of our very enormous and unusual surplus from this past fiscal year, we have actually decided to pursue a strategy to increase district local technical assistance, to increase DLTA funding through the Economic Development Bond Bill. And you should have all received a number of emails from Matt Walsh today urging you to take action. It's a very quick, this is my plug, this is my organizing background coming to fruition. Click the link in your email and send an email to your senator asking them to sign on in support of our priority amendments. And so we are focusing amendments, as I said, on district local technical assistance. We're also seeking an amendment to increase our Shannon funding for this year. And then we're supporting an amendment to increase funding for the Mass Food Trust program, which was actually reduced in the conference budget. We just learned about that. And then we're supporting an amendment to make a more robust investment in downtown revitalization and main streets. And I want to stop there because I suspect that Mark Dreesen will have something he wants to add on that piece.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Well, I was expecting you to do that, but
Okay.
we're trying hard to do an amendment that is sponsored by Senator Brendan Crichton from Lynn to put money into downtown revitalization, particularly into the implementation of the local rapid recovery plans that 125 cities and towns across Massachusetts have done, including, I think, many of the cities and towns represented around the table here today. That was a good planning program. The plans are excellent, but there's no money to fund the plans. There's very limited money to fund the plans. And while we're very thankful that the Senate is putting additional money into MassWorks, big, kind of hard infrastructure projects are not the only thing that our downtowns and main streets need. And to fund some of those smaller dollar, less capital intensive improvements to help rebuild communities that have been really hurt by the pandemic and the recession is also something we need. And we're very hopeful that we're going to do that. Tom Daniel, I just literally a few moments ago sent you a copy of a letter that we are asking Mayor Driscoll, Mayor Broder, and Manager Ambrosino to sign on behalf of this amendment for the Metro Mayors and North Shore Coalition. I wanted to copy you on that, Tom. That's my summary.
I think that's everything. Those are just the pieces that we are focusing on most closely. There are a number of other moving provisions inside the building that are taking up a lot of time. Big healthcare financing bill and sports betting bill. There is also language are also moving in a couple of different pieces. I think that's everything.
Thank you, Lizzie. So a brief pause. I'm seeing that, at least on my screen, it's saying recording paused, and I didn't know if we were having a technical issue, Andrea, that we need to take a quick break for.
Let me look into that. I know we're live streaming because we have that up there. So I know we're on YouTube right now. Let me see what.
There we go.
Okay, I think this refers to the Zoom file that just saves to the cloud, but we are definitely still live and on public on YouTube right now.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Sorry about that. Just the color changed in the top left corner. It caught my eye.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So any questions or comments for Lizzie or Mark in regards to this legislative update? Okay. Does not look like we have any. Thank you, Lizzie.
I would just note, if I could, Adam, that the government affairs team of Lizzie, Georgia, and Matt is working overtime on these issues, including when the House or Senate meets late into the night.
Thank you for that.
It's the very most wonderful time of the year. We eat lots of candy.
I think I saw some Twitter post of all of the snacks arranged in a nice way. They're probably all gone now, right?
They'll hold out.
Well, thank you for that great work. We all appreciate it very much. So the next agenda item, which is really the big agenda item to work through today, is the approval of the FY23 work plan. This will be part one of the work plan. There will be more to come, likely at a September meeting. But what we'd like to do is hear a little bit about the work plan, which was circulated by Mark, answer any questions that members of the committee might have, and then ultimately ask for approval of that work plan. So Mark, do you want to lead it or how do you want to handle this?
Let's say a couple of quick moments and a couple of quick comments and turn it over to Lizzie. We do the work plan every year. As we have more departments and more staff and more activities, it gets longer. We're dividing it into two tranches for approval this time. Today will be the two departments that report to me, Data Services and Strategic Initiatives, and 4 of the 5 departments that report to Lizzie. We're going to do communications next time because Amanda Linehan could not be with us here today. In September, we will do the portion that consists of communications department and the departments that are reporting to Catherine and us, and allow her to get a little more engaged prior to that time. On the screen in his mask, always unobtrusive in settings of this kind, is the wonderful Ben Faust from Strategic Initiatives, who plays the role at MAPC of wrangling all the directors who are considerably senior to him in status, but not in stature, to get their work plans done in a reasonably consistent format, in increments that are smaller than 10 pages each, and reasonably on time. And Ben has been very thoughtful about the content of the work plan and how to make it understandable and how to make it focus on our main strategic initiatives of the year, not simply a list of every single project we're working on. So I wanted to give big kudos to Ben and thanks for this challenging task that he has mastered. And now I'll turn it over to Lizzie, since most of the departments are hers.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Yes, so this was my first opportunity to kind of go through all the work plan components for the teams that I'm overseeing. As Mark said, we're going to hold on communications today. But I'm particularly proud of the work that the teams put in to put together their work plans. I feel like everybody was very, very focused on thinking about Metro Common implementation, and the agency's really renewed and deep focus on centering equity in our work. And so I think what we would probably do next, Mark, I'm looking at you, as we would actually go through the different sections of the work plan and invite directors to offer some highlights from each of their pieces. Does that sound like the right next step?
Yes, and we're going to start with you because I think my 2 directors aren't on screen, so I'm texting them.
Okay, well, I actually think Emily is here from community engagement, and I would love to give her an opportunity to go first and offer some quick highlights from the community engagement work plan.
All right, thank you so much, Lizzie, and good afternoon, Executive Committee. So I'm here representing community engagement. We have an exciting 4 parts to our work plan. Number one will be to continue to implement Metro Common. So very much engaged in now looking at Metro Common, our regional plan, and trying to expand the list of partners, partnerships, and engage more folks in the regional plan. We're also going to be continuing to work with municipalities on equitable engagement, creating more resources, more guides, doing an updated community engagement training, and as well as working specifically with 4 or 5 communities on figuring out best practices in language access. Last year, we focused on hybrid engagement. Before that, it was virtual engagement. And so the sort of the topic of the year is language access, how to get better at doing interpretation and translation. Followed by continuing to work on DEI initiatives. So we are continuing to work and support the Municipal DEI Coalition. They just released the guide that we had shared with you last month, and we're going to be continuing to support their work as well as the Racial Equity Municipal Action Plan program with the Fed and with GARE. Followed by, last but not least, working on expanding the subregional program, updating the program, and then also the council engaging you all more. I think now I have commiserating session on my list of things to do based on today's conversation. And making sure too, last but not least, we're continuing to work collaboratively at the agency on digital access. So I see Mo, your hand is up.
Thank you, Emily. Has there been much discussion about what, if anything, MAPC should be doing to address what I believe is becoming a critical problem, especially for the suburban communities, which is the total lack of non-municipal local news that gets information to citizens, because increasingly people are coming to hearings who are getting their information from Facebook, most of which is not accurate, and it's created a very difficult situation in terms of community engagement. I think it's not just this region, I know, but that's something I think MAPC should be talking about amongst its constituent communities.
Absolutely. This is something that our members of the sub-regional tables have brought up, especially, as you said, in the towns, with the pulling back of a lot of the local papers and the expense of the Boston Globe and other sort of more regional statewide newspapers. There's been a gap there in postings. And so I will definitely follow up with this topic, Mo, for sure. And this is probably something to connect with communications on as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing it up. Yep. Any other questions or comments? Anything to clarify? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Lizzie, who's next?
I just want to check and see if Tim or Jesse is here from Data Services. Not yet. Okay.
No, they're not. I have a message out. I'm hoping one of them will. I'm hoping that Tim will join.
Okay.
If not, I will do Data Services.
Okay. Well, then let me put on the other hat that I'm currently still wearing in government affairs and talk a little bit about the government affairs work plan for everyone. As I think folks know, we are just doing our legislative planning. Even though we're closing out this legislative session, we are starting to look ahead and plan for next legislative session. So we are kicking off conversations with a whole host of stakeholders from inside the agency and outside the agency. We usually have on average around 100 to 150 conversations to help form and shape our legislative agenda. And that takes a really big portion of our work plan for the coming year ahead. I will say we did have a lot of internal conversations with my small but mighty team about how we want to be thinking about the way we're shaping our campaigns. And we, like the other departments at the agency, were very informed by Metro Common and the policy recommendations that were included there. And in years past, we have really taken on what I think of as a bit more of a siloed approach to the way we talk about our campaign. So we've talked about things like, these are our housing priorities, these are our transportation priorities, these are economic development priorities. And this year, we decided to actually kind of shift the way that we talk about our legislative and policy priorities and really make sure that we are centering humans inside our work and our policy priorities. So we're kind of breaking our work plan priorities into, there are two very large catch-all buckets. One is really focused on infrastructure, and that's kind of those hard infrastructure investments that we might think of more traditionally associated transportation, climate, housing, but really trying to boost dollars for those investments and leverage the federal dollars that we know are newly available and are likely to be available for a very short remaining time. And then the second big catch-all bucket is really more focused on this expanding the social safety net. And I think that this will give us opportunities as a team to talk about some of our policy priorities in a much more interconnected way. I think all of you have heard me talk about this every time I talk about Metro Common, to be able to say we are advancing housing opportunities so that we can actually help address public health inequities, so that we're actually, as an example, so that we're actually better integrating all of our policy priorities across the board. Most of the rest of our work plan is really focused on things that we have focused on in the past. So that's kind of continuing to expand our stakeholder engagement, particularly working with the community engagement team to try to expand relationships with community-based organizations, because I think that's how it'll help inform some of that safety net set of policy priorities. So I'm going to stop there on the highlights, but I'm glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Lizzie? All right, looks like none.
We do have both Eric Hove and Tim Reardon on the line now. If we want to give a small pause to Lizzie and have the two of them present a few highlights from their work plans. Maybe Eric?
Sure. Thank you. Well, we finished Metro Commons, so I kind of thought my work here is done. It turns out really we have like a decade of work now to actually implement that plan, and that's really what we're looking at, and really appreciate Lizzie and all the other directors and managers, helping to figure out where we're going to go in terms of the priorities in the next year. And part of this work in terms of figuring out kind of what's next is we are going to be updating the strategic plan and also doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment for the agency. We're going to start that process really by the end of the summer. And I think part of the ask there is we have so many sprawling recommendations as part of Metro Plan, but it's really what do we do to drill down to focus on what MAPC is uniquely equipped and positioned to help advance and focus on in the next 5 years. One thing I also wanted to mention in our work plan is looking at a few different strategic initiatives in the meantime. So we can't just pause all our work until we have the strategic plan done. One thing we are going to start looking into again is, if folks remember the priority development and priority preservation plans. I think we conducted these with almost 2/3 of our communities, primarily under the Patrick administration. This identified local, regional, and state priorities for where new commercial and residential development will go, as well as areas to preserve. And there was actually an executive order that directed state resources and state technical assistance to these areas. The current governor kind of put that planning process on the shelf, but with a new administration taking over this winter, we want to see if there's renewed interest in actually this type of planning work with our cities and towns and the state as a partner. So we're going to take a look at that. My colleague, Ben Faust, he leads up our agency's learning and evaluation work. And really, there's so many aspects to that, working with directors, managers, and staff. I think the one thing I want to pull out and share with you today is work that's really been underway for the last year that he's really going to continue to ramp up, working with other managers and teams. It's called operationalizing equity. So it's focused on specific teams and work streams within the agency, looking at practices that, within those topic areas that may have produced inequitable outcomes and disparities, and what MAPC can do in our approach to the work to really try to get at much more equitable outcomes. So he's already worked with 3 teams. I think he'll be working with 6 additional teams in this fiscal year. So I'll pause there, see if folks have any questions for us.
Thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric? All right, does not look like it. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank
You
you.
get a job for 10 more years. So you're good,
Perfect.
at least. Is Tim next, Lizzie and Mark?
Yeah,
Or-
let's go to Tim.
Tim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all. I'll provide highlights from each of the working groups within the data services team. I will admit that the one I am most excited about is taking place on the research team, which is the production of an entirely new set of housing demand projections and land use forecasts for the region. That is part of the regional transportation planning process. We're working very closely with MassDOT, the UMass Donahue Institute, as well as our neighboring RPAs on preparation of those statewide, using a set of tools that have been under development, land use models and demographic models that have either been under development or in operation for a few years now, built both in-house and with a consultant. So those will be coming out to municipalities for review in September for the sort of trends extended scenario. And then I'm also excited because we are going to be working on a set of alternative land use scenarios and evaluation of green transportation impacts, GHG impacts, equity, and various other things over the course of the fall. And that's going to be done in partnership with CTPS so that those scenarios can also be incorporated into that long-range transportation plan. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for engagement, both in terms of comment as well as evaluation of some of these alternatives and the impacts of those. So folks know me, they know that forecasts and projections and scenarios are really where my heart lies. So I'm very excited about this, this phase of work this fall. On the analytical services side, one new initiative is increased work using qualitative data research methods. We are working with 3 housing sort of funders, foundations, the Boston Foundation, CHAPA, and United Way of Mass Bay, to evaluate the role of community-based organizations in provision of emergency rental assistance and connecting residents in need with rental assistance during the pandemic. And part of that's going to be looking at some hard data about money and rent costs and things, but a lot of it is going to be interviews and focus groups with both staff at CBOs as well as clients who access rental assistance through them. And that's a new area of work which I think has a lot of potential, not just in community engagement, but in really understanding how institutional processes work, priorities for organizations, and some of the nuance of local policies. On the digital side, we are going to be ramping up our work on digital equity. We recently hired MAPC's first civic technologist, Will Pfeffer, who's focused on creating digital equity plans and then working with communities and state agencies and state partners such as the Mass Broadband Institute on implementation of programs to help close the digital divide, with a particular focus on communities that have been traditionally underserved, of course. So that may include procuring new internet service in public housing development. So that's a project that's underway in both Chelsea and Revere using Mass Broadband Institute money. We're actually buying fiber wiring and wireless access points that's going to provide free high-speed internet to residents of public housing developments, and we hope to expand that work. That's just that is $450,000 is just a drop in the bucket when we look at the $50 million digital equity fund that Mass Broadband Institute is going to be announcing over the coming months. And so we're well positioned to take advantage of that, both from the success we've had so far, as well as having that civic technologist on staff. And on the IT side, critically important to keep everything up and running, and a lot of maintenance there. But I think one of the key things is to be finalizing and testing our disaster recovery system, which will ensure that if anything happens at 60 Temple Place, we can basically continue working seamlessly using totally sort of cloud hosted systems. So that's a big effort for us. And then of course, supporting the transition to sort of more hybrid workspace. happy to answer any questions folks have, and I'm sure I'll be back in touch about some of those things over the coming months.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim and his work? All right, seeing none. All right, who is next? Have we gone through?
Barry.
Yeah, Barry Kepard.
Barry. There he is. Okay.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone, for the chance to be here too. I'm Barry Kepard. I'm the director of the public health team at MAPC. Excited to be here with you all. As I was coming into today, I was trying to think about a good way to frame this. I don't know if you all are aware of this too, but there are life expectancy maps in Massachusetts that you can look at for your city, your town, even at getting to like a census tract or zip code level. And incredibly, Massachusetts has one of the best life expectancies in the country of around 80 years. However, if you look within our cities and towns, there are really wide discrepancies with what people, and we have differences of anywhere of 7, 8, 9, in some cases, even 10 years of life expectancy differences where people are expected to live to 80 on average in Massachusetts, but in other places, it could be 67, 68 years old is their life expectancy at birth based on where they are. We know that obviously at a very, very individual level that can play out in kind of there's ways around genetics and things, but more broadly, we know that social environment, economic environment, physical environment are really important factors in essentially kind of life expectancy, and really overall that you don't have to live with a place where you can avoid essentially kind of having to live with an illness for most of your life. And so when we think about our work plan each year on the public health team, we have that in our mind of what we're looking at too. And so the 4 areas where we focus our work is around environmental health and climate justice, a topic that feels incredibly pertinent, not only because we see the lack of progress that's happening, but we can also see effects that we're all experiencing over the next 6 to 7 days where we're having sustained temperatures of 90 degrees. And it's great if you live in a place that's cool and wooded and treed, but we know a lot of the neighborhoods that we work with have a lot of asphalt, a lot of heat, and essentially it really kind of are affected very significantly. So we're doing work around that, actually doing work with a set of community liaisons in the Metro West area and potentially very soon in the inner core area to really kind of co-design responses to that, those that are both culturally responsive, those that are informed by arts interventions as well, but also that are really kind of bringing strong social resiliency into the work. Another area that we really focus on within this is kind of the broader social determinants of health. So making connections around housing, economic mobility, also getting at issues around substance use disorder and public safety. So that's an area that we're focusing on. A third area that we look at a lot is food systems in a place where we're seeing greater food insecurity, rising food prices. These are areas that we're focusing on really to think about how do we improve access to local food production, and really kind of affordability and accessibility to good, nutritious foods for folks. And so we're doing that both kind of working on the private side in terms of thinking about procurement, do it very closely with the municipal collaboration team, but also thinking about the ways that we can kind of create and identify more space for local food production. And then the last one, and I think very relevant to everyone here today, is we're working very closely with local health departments in cities and towns throughout the MAPC region, and in some cases a little bit broader. And in those cases, we're working very closely to improve their capacity. So in places we're seeing new epidemiologist roles, new shared public health nurse roles, we're helping people set up, as well as inspectional roles. And then we're also thinking even more so about the capabilities that they have. What are they capable of doing of kind of with the data, the skills that they have, software that they might need. And so working very closely with them on those as well too. And so those 4 areas constitute the real focus of our work. And we really see them coming together to affect essentially provision of local public health services, a healthier community environment, and one that really builds towards people getting able to kind of really enjoy that life expectancy they can have here in Massachusetts and all the kind of benefits that it comes with. I will stop there.
Thank you, Barry. Any questions for Barry? All right, this is all evidence of a thorough presentations by all, that there's no questions for you. All right, so moving on to what I think will be the last on municipal collaboration, we'll ask Lizzie to present.
Thanks, Adam. Yes, Mark Fine and Amy Riley are unable to join us today, so I'm going to run through the pieces of their work plan. They also break their work plan up into sort of 3 concentrations and focuses, so I'll take each one in turn. So the first around procurement, The team is doing just a lot of work to try to increase our procurements from minority and women-owned businesses, and then has a renewed focus for this year on electric vehicle infrastructure procurement. It's a big opportunity for the Commonwealth, and we're excited to participate and help facilitate that. Barry mentioned a lot of the work that the team's public health and municipal collaboration are doing together around food procurement. This has been a really big area of focus for us. It has been difficult in recent years, but it is something that we are, again, eager to focus on. And then the last thing I'll just note in the procurement space is that all of you are very well aware that there are a lot of issues around supply chain and price volatility. And so we are trying to help play a role in kind of stabilizing that a little bit for our cities and towns. On the emergency preparedness and public safety practice, this is a huge practice for municipal collaboration and growing. It's a new area of work for the agency. So you see a lot of very, I think, exciting aspects of work that are kind of highlighted in this section of the work plan. And I just want to call out a few of these. I think a lot of the work of the emergency preparedness team is really kind of grew out of a lot of the work that we did during COVID, and is focused on kind of leveraging and building the relationships that we made with cities and towns to kind of help cities and towns think through how they can remain really prepared in the event of future emergencies. So as we're growing this practice, we are trying to engage in conversations with cities and towns who would want to bring us in for technical assistance, either alone, but ideally working together with other communities. A lot of this would be around developing emergency plans and providing trainings, and then also connecting some of this work with our Homeland Security and health and medical preparedness pieces. Our emergency preparedness team is one where we're, again, working with a lot of other departments at the agency. So working with climate and clean energy on heat preparedness, and then working with public health on some of those obvious specific public health measures. I do want to call out some particular pieces of work that the team is doing, working with Revere to help implement a behavioral health unit within the police department. They got a grant to do equitable approaches to public safety, and we are working with them very closely on that. We're also working with Health Resources in Action, a stakeholder partner in Lynn, and they are working to create a non-armed public safety response function within their police department there. And then we're doing a number of projects in Metro North around substance use response. And all of these, I think, are really interesting aspects of the work that the team is doing. And then I think the last piece that I want to highlight is around some of our municipal services work. Again, lots of co-work being done with other teams across the agency. So specifically around the North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative, work around climate and climate resiliency, and then doing work around regional IT and addressing digital divide. This is also the group of folks inside municipal collaboration that are helping to spearhead the conversations that we're having with cities and towns around ARPA expenditures. Again, either at the local level or kind of trying to think about ARPA expenditures with potentially a regional eye.
If I could just, Adam, make one brief comment or a couple of comments in regard to these latest presentations. I want to note, I'm sorry that Mark and Amy aren't here to hear this, but Lizzie will convey it back to them, that really the Municipal Collaboration Department, the Public Health Department, and the Community Engagement Department were in many ways the tip of the spear for MAPC and our constant response to COVID over the course of the past several years. Not only responding, but also developing new types of practice to address pandemic issues and some of the inequities that we saw as a result of that. And I want to acknowledge that, not only acknowledge their work, but also say that a lot of that is reflected in the ongoing work plans of those three departments, and a number of things constitute items that they work on together. I also want to note that similarly, we have attempted as an agency to respond to police violence and the murders of George Floyd and others We started off in that effort with our legislative work on Beacon Hill, but it has expanded to a lot of our activities. And again, I feel that these three departments are often at the forefront of those efforts. I am immensely proud of the work that we are doing in Lynn and Revere on new modalities of response to some of the issues that we face in our societies, and particularly in our society, and particularly in urban settings, trying to help people be at a table together from the prevention world and the law enforcement world, treat each other respectfully, but also work through disagreements and come up with new ways of providing more valuable service to our cities and towns, and particularly to populations of color in those cities and towns. I'll close with one final note that is particularly relevant to municipal collaboration, but also to a lesser degree public health. I don't know if you know this, it's mentioned briefly in the work plan, but we have for many years done a great deal of work on active shooter response and preparedness in our region. This is work we will continue to do. It is very hard, difficult, trying work. And for the people who do it on my staff, every time there's a shooting incident anywhere in the country, it raises tremendous emotional challenges and difficulties. I mentioned this a little in the executive director's report. You'll see it under municipal collaboration. And I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge the importance of the work. I want to acknowledge our common understanding that we wish our society operated in ways that most of that work would not be necessary. But as long as it is, we're going to continue to be engaged and to do it in a sensitive and impactful and humble a way as we possibly can. So I just wanted to acknowledge a few of those points, if I could. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Lizzie. I one comment back to the first thing you said, Lizzie. I'd be very interested to see what municipal collaboration can do around electric vehicle procurement. I know, much like everybody, delivery of new vehicles has taken a long time, which I think in some cases has prompted municipalities to opt for a 5 to 7 year locked-in investment in, a gas-powered vehicle. So any way that collective or collaborative procurement could, improve timelines based on orders of magnitude will be awesome to see if there is a pathway in that regard. So any questions for Lizzie or Mark?
We're working on computer chips, Adam, in the sub-basement. I don't know if I mentioned.
I figured Tim
That's
Reardon.
our attempt to deal with supply chain difficulties with vehicles.
Thank you.
Mark Fine is responsible for that too.
Ime.
I just, it's not a question, but I just wanted to kind of echo what Mark said about taking on the work of police violence and working in those new response ways. That is a big challenging issue, and one that I always look at and feel like how does one even approach that? So I'm really happy to know that you guys are bold enough, brave enough, and bright enough to take on that challenge. And I want to say something better than best of luck in it, but I support you wholeheartedly in it.
Thank you, Imai.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I am fearful that we are rapidly approaching loss of quorum. So I think we should, if someone is willing, to make a motion to.
Well, you know what, Adam, I had a thought in this regard, if it's okay. It doesn't affect us whether the report is adopted or not. So since we're going to give the second half in September, maybe one roll call would be sufficient, and we could just approve the entire plan. It's not like we're going to stop the work for the next 2 months. We're going to keep doing it. So
that is totally fine with me. If it is, I mean, you just said there's no functional impact, so why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Great. Well, Mark, Lizzie, anybody, Eric, looking around, who else is still on the call? Thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for taking the time to make these presentations today. I find it immensely useful to get a deeper understanding of the work that you're doing over the course of the year. And I think I can speak for the other members of the committee that it's a really nice investment of time and very helpful to us as we talk to other people about the great work that the MAPC does. So thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we are at 12:56, and the next agenda item was going to be a round robin sharing of members of the executive committee on a little bit about themselves, the work that they're doing, either in their local government or in the role that they're currently serving in. I think it was a great idea put on the agenda by Mark, because for one, we've been on this virtual format for quite a while now, for years. Some of us, like Steve Silvera, have been here for many years. Some are new, some of us somewhere in between. And even when we were in person, we didn't necessarily always have an opportunity to get to know one another, as some of us, would rush in for the meeting, sit for the meeting, and then have to go catch our train back to wherever we were going. So I think we've run out of time today, as I think we still have about 15 or 16 members here, and I don't want to give everybody 10 seconds to do their round robin sharing. So why don't we commit to doing that on an upcoming agenda, maybe at the September meeting, and see if we can bake in a little bit more time so that we can have a meaningful sharing and opportunity to get to know one another and potentially commiserate a little bit as part of that, if that is okay with everybody.
I think we'll try to do it in person again. We'll see what the situation is like at that moment in time, but we might be able to do that.
That'd be great. That would be great. So moving on from that agenda item, the next agenda item was, I think, really an announcement that we wouldn't be holding an August meeting of the executive committee, which would put our next meeting date in September, which Mark just mentioned. Hopefully will be in person, depending on what circumstances call for. Moving from that, the last agenda item before adjournment would be whether or not there's any other business not known at the time of the posting of the agenda. Mark, Lizzie, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any other business. I don't. Lizzie, do you? And I would just note for people's calendars that the next executive committee meeting will be on the 21st of September.
Thank you for that. Okay. Anybody else have any new business or other business? Okay. Seeing none, I will say thank you to all for your time today. Looks like we'll come in right on time, if I can call the roll fast enough. So I will now ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Eric.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn has been made. I'm going to say made by Mo, seconded by Aaron. I hope I got that right. And I will call the roll. Ime.
Aye.
Sharonda. Colette.
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Adam, I vote aye. Jen.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Mo.
Aye.
Tabor.
Aye.
Steve Olenoff.
Aye.
I don't have Sarah.
Aye.
I think Vandana also left. Sam.
Aye.
Monica.
Aye.
I think we lost Elaine and Aaron.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. We are officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Stay well.
Aye.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.